Peace be to you. In with the problem of evil. Let us begin with the question.
Tinakwe, and now my Haramai 2, Curious Catholic, the Evangelion podcast, bringing the gospel to the nation of New Zealand through podcasting and tours. Speaking of which, CyKellet's going to be here next week, and by next week, I don't mean in a week's time, I mean Monday, 2nd to the 4th of October. If you haven't bought a ticket yet, there's still some available, so get involved and turn up to all of them. Just turn up to all, because we're going to be talking about different things. There's breakfasts in the morning. That's on the Tuesday and the Wednesday, the 3rd and 4th. And then we're kicking it off on Monday night at the Cathedral. 7 p.m. Get your ticket. Get there. Bring your family. Bring your friends. Let's make it a big event. Because what we're doing here is we're not just touring celebrities or Catholic celebrities. We're bringing the gospel. We're trying to evangelize Evangelion, the good news, to everybody. And so this is something that we're all involved in. The gospel calls us to go and make disciples of all nations. So get involved. I'm just providing opportunities here. You got to take it up. So yeah, the first event's Monday night, next week, Monday night. 2nd, and then we've got a breakfast on the Tuesday morning. The university, we're doing a dialogue with a science professor from the university. CyKellet and this fella, I've forgotten his name, is going to be talking, going to have a good chat about science and faith, the topic everyone talks about. But it's going to be great. So come to Auckland University. The McLaren Chapel has all the details, so check that out. And go on our website, of course, evangelion.co.nz. And then we've got the Wednesday, another breakfast out east at St. Mark's. So head over to there. It's going to be 6:30 in the morning, but the breakfasts do come with coffee and donuts. CyKellet said he's sold on the donuts, so he'll be there. Also because I'm going to be taking them there. Anyway, and then on the Wednesday evening, we'll be at Meadowbank. I missed out, sorry, on the Tuesday night, we'll be in Glenfield. So check those all out. It's all on our website. You can still get tickets. They're still available. Get there, buy them, and turn up. So, yeah, that's very exciting. I'm so excited for it. And it's going to be the beginning of a few things. I've been talking about Jason Everett for next year and also Chris Stefanik, so we'll be bringing those over. And the more we do this, the more we can do this. So this isn't just let's go see that guy because I like him, but it's about supporting the mission. And if you want to do that, you can donate to Evangelion to make sure that we can get more out there, we can spend more time, we can spend more money on better products and better events. So please do get involved. And if you feel called to, please do donate. But definitely pray for us. So that's what we're going on for. And now let's talk about some Catholic life.
I don't want to think about the morning, I don't want to think about much.
Okay, so talking about the Catholic life, this is things that we can talk about. How do we live? How do we go about being Catholic? Because I feel like there's lots of instruction out there, lots of theology and philosophy, and I can just about keep up with it, but it's not something I can really go into detail. If you want to go into detail on theology and philosophy, go to Peter Kreeft, go to Scott Hahn, go to Bishop Barron. If you want to see how I'm managing to put this into the world, how I'm finding ways I can evangelize, and maybe get some ideas, check us out. So, in last week's episode, we spoke about the relational aspect of the Eucharist through the eyes of Thomas Aquinas. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about some other ideas about how we can bring that relationship to others. That's what evangelism is, because Catholicism isn't just a theological concept. It's not just a philosophy, a way of life. It is the truth. It has the way and the life, all in Jesus Christ, which we get in the Eucharist, which we could go to every day if we find the time. There's lots of variables and stuff, I understand that. But today I want to talk to you about something that I used to do, and I found really effective when I was in Prifysgol Bangor, which is the University of Bangor. So I found myself, when I was in Wales, that's where I became a Catholic. That's where I found Christ, I converted, I got a conditional baptism because I didn't have the certificate. And I got confirmed in the Catholic Church. And I always felt like a good analogy to evangelism for me is, like, imagine you've just found a new song from your favorite artist, or even you just discovered an artist and you love their music, you're listening to it all the time, and you say, oh man, I just found this great song, listen to it. And that's the kind of, like, I don't want to say vibe, because I feel like I'm not one of the youth anymore, but that's the kind of vibe that I had with evangelism. It's like, I've just found this really cool thing and I want to show it to you, I want to share it with you. The problem is, it's often in these big brick buildings that are quite intimidating, and there's lots of baggage that comes with the Catholic Church, that people often hear about before they hear the truth of it. And so, it's a bit scary, but like, again, if you think of it as just, I've just had this amazing experience and I just want you to know about it, it takes on a very different attitude. So what I used to do is I would be in my university city, Bangor, all term, and then in the summer I'd stay in an Anglican chaplaincy. I'd rent a room. It was like this youth hostel, and so lots of people would come from all over. They weren't all Christian. They weren't all there for fun. They were sometimes there just because they needed a place to stay to work over the summer. Different nationalities, all sorts of fun. And so it was this lots of rooms, and there was a shared kind of kitchenette and common area. And so you get to know the people over the summer. And what I started doing is, as you got to know everybody, you'd see them at the breakfast table, you'd say hi, you'd share your milk or whatever. You get to know, you make friends with them, because we're human and we're relational beings. And so I would come to a Sunday and I would say, hey, I'm going to Mass, do you want to come with me? And the reaction would be, I'm not a Catholic. And I'd say, well, I didn't ask you if you're a Catholic. I asked if you want to come to Mass. And as you probably expect, they said no. However, the rest of the week would continue. We carry on being friends. We do things, play music together, play games together. It sounds like we're children. I meant like computer games and stuff, like real men. Now, so we would do activities together. We'd see each other in our day-to-day business, and then you come to the next Sunday, and the same question would come. Hey, I'm going to Mass, do you want to come with me? And they'd say no. 2 or 3 weeks, Karen, and I just do this every week. And eventually, they'd come, because I'm not forcing them to come. I'm not saying, you better come, otherwise you're going to hell. This is the way the truth of life. But I am just offering a window into seeing the truth. And what I found, and so I did that, and when it worked, I was like, man, this works. This guy came with me, and he wasn't a Christian. I believe he was an atheist, maybe agnostic, and he came to Mass with me. Now, on the face of it, you're like, oh, so this guy came to an old building filled with old paintings, listening to music from an organ that was really old as well, and then he saw a guy dressed up in what looks to be a dress, prancing about the altar, saying weird things. Everyone around him was kneeling, sitting, standing, and it was an odd experience. And on the face of it, it's like, why would you bring someone to that? They don't understand what's going on, and they maybe don't understand the depth of it. They can't do a good job of being there. I guess you're right, but bearing in mind what we spoke about last week and how I introduced this, the Mass, the Eucharist and the Mass, it's about a relationship. It's about getting to know somebody. I remember speaking to a friend of mine who goes to the Latin Mass, and he said it's like getting to know a grandparent. You can't just go. You just meet them once, and it's nothing. You have to keep going, and eventually the stories come out, and you see more, and you get more, and you want to know more, and that's what the same relationship he said with the Latin Mass, but even in this case with the Novus Order, which we're going to. And I think something else we need to remind ourselves of is, I think it's kind of because we're too trapped in like this kind of scientism and this like modernity of empirical observation, taking things at face value. They are what they are, and there is no underlying deeper kind of meaning. And I like how Jordan Peterson talks about the scriptures. He says these are how the ancient people found truths, through storytelling, and you could get to a deeper truth through telling a story rather than saying 1 + 1 = 2. It's like, that's true, that's correct, but there's a deeper truth that you can't get to without elaborating and talking about it in a way that people can understand, and being a bit more lyrical, like using poetry to talk about love. It's not incorrect. It's more true than love is oxytocin being released from the brain. It's more true than talking about the science of it or just the actions of it. Love is when you give someone some flowers, because also that means you can't give anyone flowers unless you love them. And anyway, so what we're doing is we're bringing people to the Mass for the relationship, because we've got to remember that we can't convert somebody. I can't convert somebody. Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. So I don't need to bring them to heaven. I need to bring them to Christ. And then when they have that relationship, when they have that impact, that will change them so that they want to know more. And then the relationship with Christ will take them deeper. And I think, I kind of touched on it earlier, there's a lot of concerns about bringing someone to the Mass because, liturgy is important. And what if someone goes and they're not practicing liturgically well, I don't know if sacrilegious is the right word, but it's just not right, they can't respect it as you can respect it because they don't know. But bear in mind, they don't know. So it's not disrespectful, it's just them experiencing something for the first time. I think there's a parallel here in Judaism is there's less expected of people that aren't Jewish. It's like, and I think they actually, I heard someone say once, Jewish people, if someone says, hey, I want to be Jew, like, really? Do you really want to? Are you sure about that? Because right now you don't have to follow any of the rules. And you're there's a pathway for you there. There's more weight on their shoulders. And I think if you bring someone to Mass and say, they've said, yeah, okay, I'll come along, they're in a good disposition to receive. And obviously they can't do all the right rules, but as long as you say, oh yeah, don't receive communion, if you want to come up for communion, you got to give a bit of instruction to respect the liturgy. But yeah, I think, again, this is something that we can put into God's hands. Why are you inviting someone to Mass? Because you want them to have a relationship with Christ, and this is the most direct way we can have a relationship with Christ. So bringing him to the Mass would make sense, because if you're going to meet Christ anyway, it's going to be in the Eucharist. There is also the concern of, what if we freak them out? What if they're like, oh man, those Catholics are even weird, and I thought, if you seen what that guy's wearing, he heard what they're singing, was that even our language? And, I remember my first Mass was a lot of that. I think I got invited along, and I was like, this is some sort of, mind control. He says one thing, they don't have any paper, they just respond, and it's a drone, and it's weird, and it's like something from the Borg or something. And so, there is that element, but I think at the same time, Christianity is weird, and I think that's what makes it good, because it's so different from the culture. Especially Catholic Church, it's very different from the culture, and whereas it might freak someone out initially, it could also be a really big breath, it could also be a breath of fresh air, a big breath of fresh air. So there's all these what ifs. There's all these worries and concerns, and some of them quite legitimate, and they're coming from a good place. But I think without the invitation, without building relationship with others and then inviting them along, I mean, obviously don't do it willy-nilly, but building a relationship with someone, inviting them to experience the truth and the goodness and the beauty of of the world. You say of the Catholic Church, but it's just true. It's not another religion. It's the way of life that Christ has put before us. It's the way to heaven. And what if they've never been able to experience that before? There's an argument that there's still a way into heaven for them. But wouldn't it be better if they could live the rest of their life knowing this beauty, this goodness, this truth? And I always think, especially I've noticed, being a parent, that all people from the beginning, as children, they learn better from example than from instruction. Like with my kids, for example. Oh my gosh, anyone that has kids that can recognize this. It's like, you hear your kid say something, it's like, that was really rude, and then you realize it's something you've been saying for a long time, and they've just picked it up off you. I saw a video the other day, and it was a little kid say, and the mum was asking, what's mummy's name? And they said mummy's name, and they said, what's daddy's name? It's like, Alec! And that's how she always shouts for her husband. And that's how the kid responded. It's like, oh, that's what he's called then. That's how you have to say it. And so the mum didn't say, when you say daddy's name, you have to say it this way. She just said, oh, that's how mummy does it. That's how it must be done. Because they have no context for the world. And it's the same with everything. If you go into a new job and you see someone doing something, you say, oh, I see how that's done. That makes sense. I can do that. But then sometimes, I know often with me, it's like, okay, this is how you do this. This is the protocol you follow. Remember it. And then you don't do it for like 6 weeks. And it's like, well, I can't remember how to do it. However, if you do it 2 or 3 times, then you've got muscle memory and you know how to do it. So the example seems to be more powerful. And so when we're talking about this, that kind of ministry, this way of evangelizing through invitation, I'm not just talking about just go outside and invite everybody into Mass. I'm not even saying go to your closest friends and invite to Mass. What I'm saying is build your relationship with Christ so that you've got something to invite them to. So that when they're in Mass, you two aren't just chatting all the way through, making jokes as if you would in a cafe, but so they can see someone that they know and respect, and they can pray. They watch them praying and say, okay, that's how you do it. And this was really impactful in my conversion story, which I might get into another time. So there's that famous quote that's often associated with St. Francis, which is, preach the gospel at all times, and if you have to, use words. So let's use our lives to proclaim the gospel and allow others to meet Christ through the good, the truth, and the beauty that we find in the church. But first, by making it part of our lives, and then inviting others to walk along with us. So that's my encouragement for you today. Stay in touch, check out CyKellet, like, share, subscribe, donate, all those good things, and pray for us. God bless.